Boris Johnson could still face MPs before the week is out as the probe into Partygate looms over Downing Street.
So it comes after a new raft of Tory MPs are set to file letters of no confidence in Boris Johnson, we hear. It may have only been 7 days since the Prime Minister apologised for his actions, but a week, as they say, is a long time in politics.
Well, joining us to discuss another explosive PMQs is a Conservative MP, a member of the 1922 committee, Peter Bone, and former Conservative MP Rory Stewart joins us down the line. Good morning to both of you. Thank you for joining us. Mr Stewart, if we can start with you, let's start with that last point that the Prime Minister made emphatically yesterday at PMQs when the requests were put in for him to stand down and resign if he'd left Parliament. He absolutely was resolute, saying no, he's going to get on with the job. I wonder what you made of that, and I wonder what you made of his performance yesterday.
So he's obviously back on very bullish, overconfident form. I think the fundamental question is not whether he lies. I mean, this is somebody who's obviously cheated on 2 wives, been fired from 2 jobs for lying. People have known that Boris Johnson lies for 30 years. The question is, do people want somebody who lies so consistently as their Prime Minister? And can we be serious about the fact that this is a serious country, that he's managing a budget of over £1 trillion, and we are on the verge of war with Ukraine. We're dealing with very difficult issues in Northern Ireland, and this is somebody who finds it very difficult to be clear and thoughtful and serious. And a habit of lying is very, very bad for managing a country.
But this is somebody, of course, who I'm sure you will acknowledge led your party, your former party, to one of the biggest election wins in recent history. He is somebody that was elected as the leader significantly and delivered and has consistently delivered in those stakes when it comes to elections, when it comes to any sort of voting challenge.
You're absolutely right. Essentially, it was very interesting. When he was running for the leadership, this was exactly the discussion I had with people. I said, look, you know this man, you know that he's completely incapable of focusing on detail, that he'll be a terrible Prime Minister. And the answer was always yes, but he can win. He's very popular. And I think the time has come in British politics to reconsider that and accept that maybe there are things that matter apart from just your ability to win elections. And one of those things is, can you run the country well? And maybe people should vote for Prime Ministers who may not get such huge majorities, but are actually able to do a good job running things. Lying is a very, very bad thing in a leader, because you can't get the civil service or anyone to get behind your policies.
Tricky one, that, though, isn't it? Because if you're saying vote for people that don't get such good majorities, that's, people that get the majorities are the people that people vote for. So, we kind of go around in circles. But I know what you're arguing. You said there, we know he's not got good attention to detail. That is sort of part of the defence of Boris in this situation, isn't it? That, he was ambushed by a cake, he didn't know that there was a party going on, he wasn't aware, people came up to him, he was trying to be polite and hadn't, been clear on things. There's a difference between that, though, and actual lying. Are you waiting for the Sue Gray report to have evidence of that, or do you feel there is evidence already, and what is it?
Well, there's huge evidence. I mean, Boris Johnson lies all the time. I mean, you can document hundreds of lies that he's told. So I don't think we're waiting for the Sue Gray report to find out whether he lies. I mean, he lies to his wife, he lies to his employers, he lies to his colleagues, he lies to Parliament. I mean, and often he does it in different ways. Sometimes he does it by pretending to be ignorant. Sometimes he does it with a joke. Sometimes he does it by avoiding a question. He knows. He's probably the best liar we've ever had as Prime Minister. He knows 100 different ways to lie.
Peter Bone, I mean, you can hear what Rory Stewart thinks about the Prime Minister and the fact that his approach, which seemed so attractive to voters for many years, was, as Kate was describing, his ability just to be personality over detail. That was such a heavy driver in him being popular. People all knew about him. He was a Conservative London mayor, twice elected, hugely successful when he was London mayor. But the question was always, when he becomes Prime Minister, if he became Prime Minister, would that ability to lack of focus on detail, would that be his undoing? Do you feel like that's where we are now, that people are starting to see through the bluster, the storm and the character and the personality, and see the fact that there is this underhand nature that he has to bluster through things that is actually slowly undoing him?
Well, I noticed Rory made a huge number of... I mean, I don't know how many times you said the Prime Minister lied in your interview, but when you asked, name one, he couldn't name one. So I think But the thing I would agree with Rory on is what people want is somebody who can lead the country and lead it well. And on all the big calls, the Prime Minister has done exceptionally well. He got us out of the European Union, and people said Brexit couldn't be done. He did it. He got a free trade agreement, which people said
still big issues over
No.
Let's
just carry on with my list, if I may.
But it's a point that you've said something that he's also said, but others would say, actually, it's not done. There's still big issues.
We're out of the European Union. We have a free trade agreement, and that's just a fact. But let's take just COVID, for instance. I mean, a poor man nearly lost his life fighting to get us through COVID. But we got the first vaccination in the world, thanks to the fact, actually, we're out of the EU, but also because Boris and the government put money into the AstraZeneca vaccine. That's gone to 2.7 billion people across the world, saving millions and millions of lives. And we went through the whole COVID thing. And my goodness, wasn't it nice having Boris on the screen, keeping us happy during that period? And he did the furlough scheme. And then he bought 60 million Pfizer vaccines just in case we needed them. And yes, that call was important. He got it right. And that's why we've got the COVID booster plan. So on the big issues, I think he's done exceptionally well. Now, you may say, I would say that as a Conservative MP, but well,
there's plenty of Conservative MPs that aren't saying that.
Well, no, hang on. Plenty.
Well, they are.
There are, 370 of us?
What they are saying is that there are things that are undoing the good stuff that he's done, those important issues, as you've said. I mean, the interesting thing, your point about doing the press briefings every night, and he was there telling us what the rules were. And then when he gets asked about why he did something, he said, well, no one told me that was against the rules. He was the one that was telling us all the rules. All these excuses, these bizarre comments that have come out, he was ambushed by cake, all of those things. What do you make of that? Because that just seems, from the outside looking in, that just undoes any sort of credibility he has.
If you're saying that we should bring down a Prime Minister because work colleagues brought in some cake and he ate it and he talked about business and they all disappeared less than 10 minutes. You're having your toast this morning here. People have their
We're not in lockdown in the studio. We're in very specifically
but you know what I mean?
Situation within the rules.
No, you do work, don't you? And you do it. So, but if you're saying that's... Well, don't take my word for it, that the British people... We have in Wellingborough and Corby, we have a listening team that goes out every night talking to people on the doorstep. I've done 8 hours canvassing in the last 10 days, and people on the doorstep are not bringing this up. They are bringing up things like, why are you putting taxes up? Get rid of that nick increase. You know, what are you doing about small boats? When are we going to get all our freedom?
Well,
so that's what they're interested in.
Let's come to that, because I think that you're right. They're not going to say what happened at the party to you, are they? They're not particularly interested in that. But it's the knock-on effect on those issues that is concerned. Let's look at the Afghanistan and Pen Farthing, this accusation that Boris's personal private secretary looked into getting animals out of Afghanistan while there were still humans still struggling to get out. And it was a personal thing. That you know, nobody wants animals to suffer. It's not a bad thing to want to save animals, but it's to do with priorities, I think. It looks like somebody... a personal instinct of his to do something that he believed right went over and above everything else and the other rules. And that's the problem with the parties, isn't it, really?
Well, I don't...
That he felt awkward, or that, you know, let's take his version of it, ambushed by a cake. He felt awkward to say no, so he allowed the rules to be broken when there were people in far more, inverted commas, awkward situations, not going to funerals, not visiting sick people in hospital, and not being with people on their birthday who were alone and suffering from mental distress. It's a feeling of prioritising self over the greater good that I think is the real evil for him.
Well, I think most people realise the enormous amount of effort the Prime Minister put in during the COVID to protect our country. But on the Afghanistan situation, I thought our troops and who went to Afghanistan, put their lives at risk, were extremely brave to rescue people. And yesterday in Corby, Councillor Helen Harrison welcomed the first Afghan refugee to our area. And we should be proud of what we did.
Well, I think we are proud of them. We're just not proud of the disruption to the system of it.
Prime Minister said he didn't do it. The person in charge of the operation, straight-talking Defence Secretary Ben Wallace, said he was in charge and there was no such instruction given. And I think this person came back on some private donor flight. So I really think...
There's an email saying that his was involved in it.
Look, all these different people who said it didn't happen... I have a tendency to believe them.
Let's go to Rory Stewart.
What
Would like to respond to what Peter Bone said?
This is all part of the problem. I mean, I think we can all feel this in our own lives. Many of us have been unlucky enough to work for bosses who lie and change their mind all the time. It creates chaos. Some of us have been unlucky enough to be married to people like this. The problem is that he cannot be clear. He's in a muddle all the time. He says what he thinks is going to please one person, contradicts him with the other. Peter asked about examples. I worked for him in the Foreign Office. I was his deputy when he was in the Foreign Office. I saw him do this consistently. It's impossible for us to have consistent policies because one moment we would all agree with the Foreign Office that we were going to criticize the Kenyan government, and the next moment Boris would be texting the Kenyan Foreign Secretaries congratulating them on the election. This goes right to the heart of the... And this pen filing thing is just another example of thousands of things which are very dangerous for a country. We're a serious country. We're dealing with serious problems in Northern Ireland, in Ukraine. We've got a government that's spending hundreds of billions of pounds more a year than it's taking in taxes. It needs very serious economic management. And we have somebody in charge who is essentially an entertainer and is incapable of providing clear, truthful guidance to people he's managing.
So in terms of this Sugré report waiting to come out, you've obviously already decided, I sense, that you think he should resign and go. Will he, though, actually?
No, he'll try to cling on, and people like Peter will keep repeating as many things as they can to defend him. And of course, when parties get behind their leaders, they can produce stories. So they can, we can focus on the fact that the economy has been growing well over the last year, but it hasn't been growing so well over the last 3 months, and it's not been growing so well over the last 2 years, and back and forth. But the fundamental question is this what a serious country wants? Do you want to be represented by this man internationally? And I think the answer for Britain ought to be no.
Just on that, Peter Bone, just on the Sugré report, it feels a little bit, as someone's pointed out here, that we're like expectant parents waiting in the maternity ward for the report. There's no cries yet. What are your expectations? Do you think we'll get it before the weekend?
Well, I'd like the baby to be induced and get on with it. Look, it's possible it'll come late today. But the thing I was listening to Rory, and it's like a football match. He's playing the player, not the ball. They can't disagree what Boris has achieved in government. They're not attacking the fact that we're the fastest growing economy in the G7. They're attacking the player. And I always resent that. OK.
Unfortunately, we're out of time.
I am attacking that. So we're not over the last 3 months.
Rory, I'm afraid we're out of time, but we do appreciate you joining us this morning. Rory Stewart, thank you, and Peter Bone, good to have you with us this morning. We'll see if the report does indeed get induced and arrives before the weekend. Yeah. It's certainly something that everybody is waiting for very keenly.